my co-host, and it's time again for Diary of Physicist Farmgal. This is episode number 20. Yay! This is a podcast coming to you from the foothills of the Ozark Mountains in Arkansas, from my family farm. It is about my crafting. I like to do all the crafts. I like to knit, I like to crochet, I sew, I quilt, I make baskets, I make jewelry. I like to try anything I can get my hands on. Also, I am a professor of physics and astronomy at a local university where I teach everything from the general education physical science classes to majors classes on astronomy or physics or meteorology. And I'm especially active in activities for young women in STEM, and I also am a volunteer planetarium show putter-oner, I guess you could call it. Last but not least, if you can hear in the background occasionally a mooing sound, or it is raining a little bit right now, I live on my family farm of 170 acres where I raise grass-fed beef, horses. I also have show-quality rabbits, heritage poultry, and I am a haven for some rescued miniature horses, miniature donkeys, and a miniature mule named Pumpkin who thinks she rules a roost. And as you can tell from my charming co-host here, Willie, I am fur kid mom to 14 dogs, 6 indoor cats, well, that's a story that's coming later, and an undetermined number of outside cats. So if you think that sounds interesting, I hope you stick around and watch with us on Diary of a Physicist Farmgal, episode number 20. Okay, everybody, if you're looking for us on social media, you can find me on Instagram and on Ravelry as Doc Firewoman. There is also a Ravelry group for the podcast, Diary of a Physicist Farmgal, where you can find out about any make-alongs or giveaways that we have going on. And I have a giveaway that I'll talk about in just a second. Also, my farm Facebook page is Buckthorn Farms, just like my YouTube channel name. So if you found my YouTube channel, you can find my Facebook farm page where I post lots of pictures of what's going on the farm, and I share cool links and information there. I do have a Twitter account, but it is where I vent a lot of my political leanings, and I'm a big old liberal snowflake, and I like to share and rant and do things on Twitter, so it might be better for everybody's blood pressure that's involved just to stay away from that if that kind of thing bothers you. So I try to keep that to a minimum elsewhere unless I see a need to speak out, because I will speak out against racism, homophobia, xenophobia, religious discrimination against all religions, not just your preferred religion, animal cruelty, cruelty to little children, and cruelty to elderly people. If you got a problem with any of those things, probably don't want to be here anyway. So anyway, hopefully you're still sticking around. I want to welcome all our new viewers, and I want to say thank you to my returning viewers. I hope you're all doing good, but let me tell you a little bit about our giveaway. I have reached 100 subscribers on YouTube. Oops, you scooted, Willie. Okay, I've reached 100 subscribers on YouTube, and I said when I did that I would do a giveaway. There is a giveaway thread open in the Ravelry group where there's a prompt there where you can enter. And also, if you'll look on my Instagram account, there is a photograph that's on there that was posted about a week ago that has a prompt under it where you can also enter there, so you can double dip. You can enter in 2 places. But let me show you the prize. It's the same for both giveaways. It is this really cool big project bag made by me, and it was made from the In Color Order Jenny Baker pattern, and if you'll notice, it's got farm animals on it. Yay! For Diary of a Physicist Farmgal. It is a drawstring lined project bag. Okay. I've got to put a little fray check on my drawstrings here to make sure they don't fray on you, but it is a nice big project bag size. Okay, it holds 3 or 4 skeins of yarn in a nice big project, but in it are some goodies. So let's see what we've got in it, shall we? I tried to make this prize a fair and balanced prize, or however you want to say it. I tried to represent all aspects of the podcast. So to that end, there is a night sky flip chart, which has got lots of information on it. It's got stuff about constellations. On the back, it shows how to find the Milky Way galaxy. It's got some information about dark sky locations there. So you get a nice laminated, water-resistant night sky flip chart. Then you get a skein of recycled silk sari yarn that was donated to me for review by Paradise Fibers. I don't know what the yardage is on this. I have no idea, but because there was no tag on it, but I think it would be just a nice little accent yarn for some really cool cowl project or hat project. Then you get, because I love pins, I went to the local state park and I bought an Arkansas enamel pin. Okay, and it's got our state flag on it. It's also got an apple blossom for our state tree, and it's got a largemouth bass on there. Maybe that's our state fish, I don't know. Then I bought a little, because on my farm I have bees, I bought a little bee pocket totem that you can carry around with you, and there's a little card that goes with it that tells about the bee. And then, last but not least, every farm gal in her arsenal, or every farm guy in his arsenal, needs some bag balm. So I went to my feed store and I found these little samplers of bag balm, and these are great if your hands get really dry from handling lots of yarn or lots of fabric. So those are all the little goodies that are in the prize. I do have some felted soap also, if it looks alright when it's done. I'm going to put a bar of that in there too, so you'll have another farm gifted product. So those are the prize. This is the prize. I thought it represented pretty well all aspects of the podcast. So that's the prize for my 100 subscriber giveaway on YouTube, or YouTube subscriber giveaway. So please go enter on the Ravelry group and go enter on the Instagram post, and I'm going to be closing those threads down next week, a week from today, at 9 p.m. Central Daylight Time. So I'll be locking the thread then, and I will draw, and I'll announce the next time I podcast after that. So it won't be next week. It'll be probably won't be next week. It'll be the following week. So please go enter the drawings, and now we're going to move on to some interesting things online that I found that I wanted to share with you about other make-alongs and cool patterns. There's a couple of online resources that I wanted to share with you really quick, and one of those is something I've already talked about a couple of weeks ago, which was the Welome Blanket project. You are still able to donate a welcome blanket through the end of August to the Museum of Design in Atlanta, where they're having a 2,000-mile exhibit. And then they're going to give the blankets to immigrant families, or I believe they are taking blankets through November for this particular portion of the project, but it wouldn't be able to be in the exhibit because the exhibit ends in September. Excuse me. Another resource that I want to tell you about is not knitting related, but it is a great place to get recipes and information about oils and herbs and things like that, and that's Mountain Rose Herbs. Mountain Rose Herbs is a commercial site, but they have a great blog where they post all kinds of interesting recipes and things for you to try, where you can get recipes to make things like thieves oil, which is a great cleansing oil. It also smells really good, but it has a lot of antibacterial properties. Or you can get a recipe to make your own homemade deodorant. I make my own deodorant, and I was skeptical of doing that at first, and I need to make a batch. I'm almost out. I was really skeptical of doing that at first because I thought, oh, I'm a big old corn-fed farm girl, and I sweat. I don't glow. I sweat, and I sweat a lot because I'm outside working a lot, especially in the summertime. So I thought, okay, if I can find one that will work for me in the summertime, we're golden. And I have found a formulation that does work really well for me. I pinned it on Pinterest, but if I think of it, I will share the recipe below. It's really easy to make your own deodorant and know what's in it, okay? Because I don't know, and I haven't read enough of the scientific literature to look at the connection between aluminum use and Alzheimer's. But I just thought, well, if I can make my own, it saves me money because it's things that I have already. Plus, you know, it's just better for me, I guess, in my own mind. That's what I have decided. So Mountain Rose Herbs is also a great website or a great resource for you to use online. So I'm going to link both the information about the Welome Blanket project and also to the Mountain Rose website. And they don't sponsor me. Nobody sponsors me. But I do use a lot of their products, and I find them to have good value for money. Plus, they're a great educational resource, and I'm all about learning some stuff. So anyway, I'll link both of those in the down bar below. So now let's move on to finished objects. Okay guys, I actually have 2 finished objects to share with you this week. So let's start with, in my Tesla Knits Star Trek The Original Series Characters bag. She makes a lot of sci-fi themed project bags. So if you like Doctor Who or Star Trek, she's got some really cute project bags. Plus she also has some science themed ones too, because Jasmine is an electrical engineering graduate student in Oregon, I believe, and she makes some really cute bags, and her proceeds from her sales all go to help fund her education. So go buy a bag from Tesla Knits. Remember, she was one of the ones that was kind enough to donate 4 really beautiful project bags to the Make-Along, and hopefully people are getting their prizes. I know that Antonia posted that she got hers, so if it made it to England, hopefully it made it everywhere else. But anyway, so in this bag, I have a project that I started last July, and I just finished it over the weekend, and so it was eligible to enter into Vanessa, who is the A Historian Knits podcast. She had a Finish It Make-Along, yay, and that spurred me on to finish this. Now, this is the Reyna Shawl, okay, or a version, a version of the Reyna Shawl, okay, by Nora Backlund. It's a very popular free pattern on Ravelry. It's a fingering weight, single skein shawl. Mine is probably a little shorter than most because my dogs got into that skein of yarn and kind of goobered it up a little bit, so I had a lot of little balls of yarn that I was finishing up. But this is the Reyna Shawl, and I am very, 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 very tickled that this is done because it had been sitting for a long time, idle, and I had kind of got mad at it because of what had happened with the yarn. So I picked it up and finished it, and it was a fairly quick shawl to finish. So it's a smaller triangular shawl. Mine's probably even a little bit smaller than it would be if you did it. And I kind of riffed on the pattern. I just didn't really follow the chart because it's just rows of garter and then rows of yarn over lace back and forth. And I just kind of did what I wanted. I think it turned out fine. But anyway, I finished this past weekend. The yarn is Kimarie's Knacks. It's fingering with sparkle in it, and it is a colorway called Hippie Chick. So I think it's a really beautiful, bright, wonderful, springy colors, very bright, happy colors. So I look forward to getting to wear this. Now, we actually have had a few cooler for what it has been, days. Like I got up this morning and it was 68 degrees, which was very cool. We had a nice little radiative fog going on because we had some rain last night, and we'll probably have another one in the morning because it's going to be a little cool again, and I can already see fog starting to form out there from the rain showers that went through just a little bit ago. So yeah, so you're starting to feel that breath of fall, even though it's hotter and snot during the daytime. A lot of times you're starting to feel that breath of fall. The seasons are changing. So got this finished, so I'm really pleased with that. So that is the Reyna Shawl by Nora Backlund, and the yarn is Kimarie's Knacks Hippie Chick. So yay, so I got that done. It's got about 42,000 ends in it because I had to use little bits and pieces of balls of yarn because of the dogs. But, oh well, I'll sit down one day and do a end weaving in festival. But anyway, okay, so then Saturday night, I got in the mood to, I don't know, make a basket. I had this yarn in my stash. I think I got it in a bag of stuff from the Goodwill last year. It's a thick yarn, and it has kind of a weird feel to it, okay? It's a thicker yarn. It is definitely not something you would want to use for a garment. But it's a nice big thick yarn. I thought, I'm going to crochet a basket. So I did. Took me one evening, basically, to sit down and crochet this basket. You know, it's a very simple pattern. This is also a free pattern. It's called the Chunky Basket by Cara Guiza, I believe. I'll link that down in the down bar. But it's a nice, quick, you really use an N size hook, so you use a really big hook. In fact, let me reach over here and get it. There's the hook you use. So it goes really fast. In fact, this is only 8 rows of half double crochet going on here. So you can see how quickly this thing builds up. But anyway, it needs a little bit of shaping to it. I mean, I got to do a little bit of working with it to get it shaped the way I want it. But I think it'll be fine. So I finished that up, and I thought, well, you know, give that to somebody as a present, and, you know, that'll be a good entry in the county fair. So I got that finished. Yeah, so let me put that back. So those are my 2 finished objects for this week. So now let's move on to works in progress. Okay, guys, my works in progress this week. First of all, I got my blocks finished. I didn't get them set together yet, but I did get the blocks all finished for the log cabin quilt, the lap quilt. So there's 48 blocks here because there's a total of 12 blocks, big blocks in the lap quilt. It's a 3x4 lap quilt. So it takes 4 of these log cabin blocks to make 1 block of the big blocks. Okay. So I got these finished, and so I can't really show the whole thing, but I've showed the picture a couple of times. The way these will go together is they'll set together like this, and there'll be 4 of them, so you'll have the dark center and then the lighter outside. So my hope is tomorrow to get these, the top at least put together, okay? I got a couple of these that are a little bit squint, they're a little bit wonky, and so I don't have to kind of fudge around with them a little bit, but I bet I can make them work. Anyway, because it's just for me anyway. So I'm going to try to get that put together tomorrow. So that's one of my works in progress. It's a sewing work in progress. Then I decided, and I mentioned this several episodes ago on my future crafting, about the Kelvin monster pouch. Okay. This is a free pattern by One Dog Wolf. It's on her blog, onedogwolf.com, or you can find it on Ravelry. Okay, it's a free pattern. It's crochet, and I decided I wanted to make the monster pouch mainly because I'm interested to see how one would put in a zipper. So I'm actually working on that part of the bag right now. So it's in my Silver Shed USA Foxes bag. Right, this is a nice big project bag. It's probably way too big for this project, but I wanted to use it, so I stuck it in there. So I've already made the back. Okay, this is the back part of the pouch. I'm just using some acrylic yarn, you know, big box store yarn, Red Heart yarn that I happen to have. So I've got the back made already, and I'm working on the front. Okay, so I'm about this far into the front. You crochet 30 something rows, and then you work the opening for the zipper. So I think I'm about maybe 20 rows in right now. So yeah, so I've got to do that, and then once I get that done, then I'll make, he's got feet and arms and a little top knot, and then his eyeball here. And I'm pretty sure I like the zip. Normally I don't like zippers with metal teeth, but I think the zipper here with the metal teeth really kind of adds something a little extra. So I'm going to, I think I've got a couple that have metal teeth like that I'm going to put in there. So yeah, really quick to make up. Her directions are always very clear. She has a lot of free patterns on her website, so you should go check that out, especially if you're wanting to learn to crochet, because she has some very simple like amigurumi type patterns. In fact, she just released a really cute duck pattern I'm going to go get because I want to try to make one. Okay, now the next thing are some things that I started, but I haven't done a lot of work in, but I wanted to kind of remind you of them. This is in my Fat Bottom Bags, my Kitty Moods bag. Okay, Fat Bottom Bags, and she provides a little stitch marker holder on her bag. So this is a nice little lined drawstring bag. This pattern is by a friend of mine. This pattern is by Christine Chin. She's also known as Needle to Needle on Ravelry. She's also known as Bay Area Knitter on Instagram. And this was a cowl called Haylie's Hug. And proceeds from this cowl go to benefit a childhood cancer foundation. This is in memory of a little friend of hers who lost her life to osteosarcoma. Her name was Haylie. And this is a very pretty, fairly straightforward DK weight cowl. Okay, so I haven't put a whole lot of work on this since the last time you saw it, but I am knitting it in the Honeybee Knits, her special edition colorway called Soraya, I believe it's called. Soraya, you can't read that, can y'all? This was her benefit yarn for her friend who's died of esophageal cancer. So it's a very beautiful tonal purple. And I thought that would be a nice yarn to knit this cowl in. So I'm not very far on it. I'm getting ready to start the drop stitch rows. So yeah, so that's where I'm at on that. If I don't drop some stitches. Yeah, I'm good. Okay. So so find that on Needle to Needle on Ravelry is Christine's Ravelry name. And she has a lot of patterns. She has got quite a few patterns on there. She does a lot of designing, I believe, for Red Heart. So you can go look at her pattern library and see what she's got on there that might tickle your fancy. Okay, then in my Tesla Knits periodic table bag, yay, periodic table, woo! I have my Couch and Cracker socks, which are a pattern by Julia from the Happy Knitting podcast, and she's the one doing the summer stash down, which I believe runs through the end of August. So I'm wanting to get these. I need to pick these back up and get to working on them because they would qualify. But this is her first sock pattern. It's the Couch and Cracker socks. So she's doing the summer stash down, where you just knit anything or crochet from stash. And I'm knitting them out of this yarn I got from Craftsy. It's just their Cloudborn DK. It's just a wool blend yarn in a colorway called Josh's Cat. And honestly, I bought it because of the name. Big surprise. So I'm not really any further than the last time you saw, because I haven't put any work into these, but I'm just doing the toe increases right now. So I do need to pick these up. These are on some size 1, which is 2.25 millimeter Chow Goose. I need to look that up. Y'all, you think I'd remember that, but no. Yeah, 2.25, I remember. I decided to go down to a size 1 because I was finding my socks on a 1.5 were being a little bit loosey-goosey. So I've decided to try a 1, and if they don't fit, then I can always give them away as a present. Most people don't have as big a feet as I do, I don't think. So, okay, so that is the Couch and Cracker socks by Julia from the Happy Knitting podcast, which she has a great podcast out of Germany, so you should go check her out. Okay, oh, I forgot to put the pattern back in here. Let me do that right quick. Willie, you're slipping, aren't you, bud? Come here. Scooch. There you go. Okay. They announced a significant weather advisory for us just now. I'm looking out the window to see if I can see what's coming. Okay, my last work in progress that I will share this week is in my April 9 Designs. She's April 9 Designs on Etsy is her name. April 9 Designs on Etsy is her Instagram name, but she has an Etsy shop. And she makes very beautiful project bags. And she always gives you a cute little progress keeper with them. And this is one of her project bags that has the sewn-in measuring tape. And it has a little pocket on the inside, too. You can see there's a little pocket there. Okay, so in this bag, I have my Knits Weaver Seeds shawl, which is a really beautiful, kind of interesting construction. One skein, you can make it a 1 skein fingering weight shawl, or you can make it larger. She tells you in the pattern how to make it larger. And this is being knit out of the Honeybee Knits Tits Out Collective colorway, which is called Be Positive. And that collective ends today. It ended today, or is ending today. And I know that Countess Ablaze was going to try to publish a final number of how much money was donated to all the charities, and I'm super excited to see how much it was. So that is, I am through with section 1, and I'm getting ready to cast on, do a knitted cast on to make this section wider and start the cabled section. So I'm through with section 1 here. Okay, so I'm very tickled about that. And this beautiful, beautiful yarn. This is the sprouting seed section. So you're doing a sprouted seed stitch here where it looks like little seeds sprouting out of the ground. So as a farmer, that appeals to me, but I also like the idea of they tried to bury us, but they did not know we were seeds. I like that idea because you're not going to bury me or burn me at the stake or any of those things. So, but anyway, so I got that far on that. I want to work on that, but I want to finish those socks first because I've kind of gotten off of making socks and I feel like I need to get that finished. But that is in my April 9 Designs bag. So I'm going to work on that some. I've got a couple more weeks before I have to go back on the clock at work. So maybe I can get a little bit more done on all those. But I don't mind taking projects to work with me to work on like at my lunch break or before class, like 15 minutes before class. I find it's a good conversation starter with my students if I'm sitting there knitting or crocheting anyway. So it's kind of a good icebreaker, so I don't mind that so much. But anyway, so that's all my works in progress. So now we're going to move on to a little bit of future crafting. Okay guys, again, I'm not very well prepared for my future crafting this week because I still haven't been into work to print out pictures or patterns or anything, but I am again going to do the A Crocheting Whovian. Laura at the A Crocheting Whovian podcast is starting a knit along starting tomorrow on her cowl pattern, which is called the Sunrise, Sunburn, Sunset Cowl, I believe. It's a nice one skein fingering weight cowl, and she's doing a knit along with it that starts tomorrow. So I may try to cast it on tomorrow, or I may wait till the weekend and see if I can get some of these other things knocked out. But this is the yarn I'm going to be making it out of. This is a colorway by Expressions Fiber Arts, which is called Turn the Lights. The lights are turned way down low, and this was one of her holiday colorways, and I think it's a beautiful mixture of golds and sort of magentas. The light's messed up in it. Golds and magentas and sort of royal blue, midnight blue colors. So I'm going to use this for that cowl because I've been saving this since December. So if I can get this done before the end of August, it'll also qualify for the Happy Knitting Podcast Summer Stash Down. So that's going to be one of my future crafting projects. Then I signed up for another mystery knit along. I'm so funny. It doesn't start till September 7th though, so I've got a little bit of time. It's called the In the Rough Mystery Knit Along. And I forgot to write down who the person was. Oh, no, I did. Michelle Steed. Michelle Steed? Yeah, I believe that's her name. I hope I wrote that down right. But she's having a mystery knit along that starts in September. It's called In the Rough, which is like diamonds in the rough. The name just caught me, you know, I liked it. And it was for, you need a tonal yarn and then a complementary, like a speckle or something like that. So I've got kind of in my mind the yarn that I'm going to use. I didn't pull it out of my box yet because it isn't going to start till September night. I've got enough, frankly, I've got enough crap drug out in here. I don't need to drag out anymore. So, but anyway, so I'm planning on doing that. A sewing a sewing future crafting. I want to get this little Halloween vest made up. Okay, this is another one of those printed panels. It's a Halloween vest. I need to dig in my fabric stash. I have a lot of Halloween fabric, so I need to find an appropriate lining fabric for this. So I want to try to get that made up because, again, I used to wear something for Halloween every day in October, and I would like to kind of get back to that. So, yeah, this is called the Trick or Treat Vest. Okay, this is called the Trick or Treat Vest, and it's a printed panel. I believe it's by VIP. Let's see if I can see on here who it's by, or does it even tell? Hang on. Trick or treat. Well, no, it's going to be contrary, isn't it? Yeah, VIP. It's a VIP printed panel. I don't know if this was in my mom's stash or if this was in my stash because I merged them together about a year ago. You know, I'd kind of let things sit until after she'd passed away. But anyway, so these are some of those printed panels. I'm going to try to get that made up. And then the last thing that I will share with you is kind of knitting related, but it's a basket. Jill Choate Basketry sells beautiful kits, and back in February, I ordered a kit for a basket called the Knitwit. It's a knitting basket, and it's lined. And she provides the lining fabric and everything. It's lined with this fabric, and actually she's already sewn this together and sewn the pockets in it, so all you have to do is put it in there. But this is the Knitwit basket. Okay, this is the Knitwit basket. And Sasha, her mother, and I are getting together for a free-for-all basket making day next Tuesday. So a week from today, we're having a free-for-all basket day, and this is the basket that I'm going to work on. So stay tuned. There was a color one. There was one that was oranges and reds, but I like this blue and green one myself, for my own self better. So that is the Knitwit basket by Jill Choate Basketry. She has some great kits. If you get on her mailing list, she also puts things on sale from time to time. And she has a basket retreat that's over in Montana, and boy, wouldn't I love to go to that one year. But anyway, so those are my future crafting projects. So now we'll move on to a fairly short acquisition section. Okay guys, yeah, there are some pretty significant storms off to the west of us, so I'm going to try to get this acquisition section done fairly quickly, and then maybe, hopefully I can get the rest of everything recorded, but if not, well, I'll just do my best. Okay, my acquisition section is pretty short this time, and one of them is actually an acquisition that I forgot that I had, and I've had it for some time. My friends Marla and Gypsy, who I have mentioned a few times, have the Icelandic educational homestead over in Callahan, Florida, and you saw my shorty video of Gypsy using her flat braid loom. Well, they went to Iceland a few years ago, and Marla brought me back some Christmas ornaments of Icelandic horses. They also brought me back this yarn. This is some Icelandic yarn. I don't know what kind it is. It doesn't have a tag or anything with it, and the only thing that was in the bag with it was a slip of paper with my name on it. It's a fairly rustic feeling yarn, but it's a beautiful blue color. So it would be very scratchy to have around your face, I feel like, but I think it would make a great hat. I might make a cowl out of it. If you wore it with a turtleneck, it might not be so itchy. But it's a beautiful color, and they're actually going back to Iceland later this fall. So I've already put my request in for some more yarn from the trip. And they just sent me a message. Sorry, I keep my camera sliding. Excuse me just a minute. There we go. They sent me a message saying they had found some Icelandic yarn, and it looked like it was Let Lopi. It was the tag on it. So they asked me if I wanted it, and I said absolutely, because it would be great for color work. And I just bought a color work hat pattern from the Queen of Pearls on her. I found her through Instagram. Somebody tagged me in a picture of this hat pattern. It's got the lunation phases of the moon on it, and I'm like, oh, I've got to have that pattern. It was on sale for half price through that evening, so I was tickled that I found it. But at any rate, this is some yarn. I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet, but I want to make something special out of it because it was a gift from my two dear friends. Now, the other thing that I have is some fabric that I bought some time back with big plans. Here it is. Now, I have in my head that I'm going to make, and I'm going to put another Halloween themed print fabric with this. I'm going to make a Halloween Lone Star quilt. Yay! Won't that be fantastic? But I got it in my head that I was going to make this Halloween Lone Star. This fabric is actually going to be the background of the star. Instead of white, I'm going to do this fabric. So I may just stick with these more solids. I found a speed piecing technique to make a Lone Star with, so that is just not one of Stacy's. Sorry guys. So I may try to do that, but I've got in my head that I want to make this Halloween Lone Star quilt, so we'll see how that works out. Of course, I will talk about it like crazy on here if I get it done. So those are my very short acquisition sections for this week. So if you're here for the craftiness, we're through with that part, and now we're going to go on and talk about science and farm life. Okay, hopefully my phone won't be fidgeting around as much. One of the things that I want to talk about, and this is kind of farm related, but it's conservation related as well. I've noticed the last few weeks I have been hearing bobwhite quail on my place again. Now, bobwhite quail, used to be tons and tons of them. In fact, in my earlier days, my dad actually used to hunt quail. He quit doing that, when I got a little bit older. I don't remember him ever doing that, but we used to have two, what he called bird dogs. They were pointers. They were both German short-haired pointers. Now I know more about animals. But, for a long time, we didn't hear any bobwhites around here. And I've noticed I've been hearing bobwhites the last few weeks, which makes me very, very happy, because bobwhites are sort of endangered because of habitat loss. They like overgrown areas. I was just looking at the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission's webpage about them, and they like tall undergrowth. They like to be able to hide. They like a mixture of grasslands and trees with some brush, and I definitely have that on my place. Not really on purpose, but kind of on purpose. I was thinking the other day, my dad really set my feet on the path that I'm on as far as being environmentally minded, because he joined a program years ago called Acres for Wildlife. And he had a bumper sticker on our old white Chevrolet truck that said, "Acres for Wildlife, ask me." And I remember I would see him. I saw him one day. I was outside playing on the playground, and I saw him drive by, and I knew it was him because I saw that bumper sticker. The Acres for Wildlife program is actually still going on, so I'm actually going to enroll my farm in it, because what they do is they send out a private biologist that helps you manage your land to be both suitable for your, say, cattle or whatever you're raising, crops or whatever, but also appropriate for wildlife. And I really, really want to maintain that balance. That satisfies me as a scientist, as a farmer, and also on my spiritual level. I want to be a haven for wildlife whenever possible. I know one thing that I've been noticing, I've been leaving water out everywhere, and the songbirds are drinking from it. I've had butterflies. I've had, wild animals. I know Antonia, they've been having very, very, very dry conditions in England, and she had posted something about putting out water for the wildlife. And they suffer too. If we're suffering, they're usually suffering too. I know many of you are following these awful, awful fires in California that they're having right now. They're just getting into their fire season. They're already having these devastating and very deadly fires. Firefighters have died. People have died. It's been very tragic over in California. And so to me, managing our land and keeping it healthy is really important. And again, leave that alone. Again, that's part of my spiritual path as well as my scientific path. So I was reading online about the bobwhite quail, and I noticed that the Acres for Wildlife program still exists, and it's a free program to enroll. So when I get off here, I'm going to enroll my farm in the Acres for Wildlife program. Now, another thing that I wanted to talk about too was I found a really cool article about apple hybrid. Well, it's not an article that I found. Several months ago, or maybe it was a couple of years ago, I listened to a program on NPR called Science Friday. It comes out every Friday. It's for 2 hours. They talk about everything. A lot of times it's space stuff, which I love. But there was a really cool one about apple hybridization, and they were talking about particularly the Honeycrisp. Particularly the Honeycrisp apple, and why that apple is proprietary, and why the trees are so expensive, and they limit the number that you can own because of the months and months and years that it takes to create a quality hybrid. Because if you hybridize an apple tree, if you take, you take a blossom from one tree that has desirable apples on it and another tree that has desirable apples, and you cross-pollinate those buds, on a tree, and you get an apple, well, then you have to grow a tree from that apple to taste the fruit to see if that's what you wanted, and that takes a while. If you've ever grown fruit trees, you know that it takes a long time for those trees to start actually producing a reasonable amount of fruit so that you could test, and you have to do this for multiple trees. You can't just do one tree. So it's a huge process to hybridize these apples, and that's why a lot of times when you look in catalogs or whatnot, they'll be protected or something like that. So it was a really cool interview with someone about the hybridization process and just the labor of love that really is to go in and create these new apple varieties that we take for granted in the grocery store. So I'm going to link that article as well. Now, the last thing that I wanted to talk about was an article that Antonia actually turned me on to about the Zen of Knitting. Okay, and that's not necessarily science, but I think it fits there in the sense that the idea of quieting your mind and doing something very repetitive allows you to get into a state where your brain can kind of relax and unlock. Or, I used to find that I would do my best thinking and my best problem solving when I was out baling hay, because I would get in, as long as everything was working right and nothing was breaking, I would get in that mode where I was just doing something very repetitively, and my mind could kind of work on other things. I wasn't just going through the motions. I mean, I was actively listening. I mean, when I bale hay, I know if things are working right by how everything sounds, or by how the tractor is moving. When I'm sitting on it, the baler moves the tractor a little bit, and I can tell, I tell when it's about ready to tie off a bale, or I can tell if something's not quite right, or I can tell if there's a balanced bale in there. But you're doing these repetitive sort of moving meditations, and I really liked what that article said about the process, the actual paying attention to the creation of the stitches and the process. And it goes beyond just knitting process. It goes into you spending the time to make those motions, to make the stitches. So it was a really cool article, and I'm going to link that also below, because I do think that we've all been in that zone when we're knitting where it gets very, very cathartic almost to knit. Something. It gets very cathartic to knit, especially when it's going right. Not so much when it's not going right, but when it's going right. So, yeah, and I mentioned we were having some storms here. We're having those we've got a occluded front off to the west of us, which means we're getting rotation around the low pressure system that's pulling moisture up from the Gulf, and in the afternoon these storms start firing up. I got caught in one today. And I'll tell you more why in the farm section, but I was going somewhere that I hadn't planned on going, and I ended up getting caught in this storm, which that was fine. I mean, it was no big deal, but it was just kind of I'm like, oh, boy, I couldn't have timed that worse if I had tried. But anyway, so yeah, so that is a little bit about science today, apple hybridization and knitting and Acres for Wildlife. So there you go. We kind of hit all the high notes of the Physicist Farmgal there today. So yeah, we're going to move on now and talk about farm life. Okay, guys. Well, tomorrow, August 1st, is a day that I celebrate as Lammas, which is sometimes celebrated in Europe and Great Britain. People who follow earth-based traditions celebrate it. Lots of different people celebrate. There's some churches that observe it as well. And it's the festival of the first harvest. It's the wheat harvest. And so Lammas very often involves the baking of bread. So you harvest the wheat. And I was reading an interesting article about, this time of year, you would think, okay, summer is the time of bounty and everything, but your wheat supplies are running low, so your baked goods are becoming kind of scarce until we get to the harvest. So we do have our first harvest coming up, and here where I live, things are definitely in harvesting mode. The gardens are beginning to producing, crazily. This little cool spell is going to bring the gardens kind of back to life. I think it usually does, and we have a little bit of a cool down. And I was thinking along the lines of it's the first harvest, but we're always thinking to winter. People who are land-tied or land-based or live off the land always know that even in the times of bounty and harvest, that winter is always around the corner. You got to prepare for winter. So it's kind of like the ant and the grasshopper fable. You've got to be thinking about winter. I was driving by somewhere. Where was I at the other day? I was driving by somebody's house that I know, and I noticed that they were starting to cut and stack firewood. And you think, oh my gosh, it's so hot. How can you be thinking about? Well, this is the time of year to do it so that it will be dried and seasoned to be used in the winter. And we just had those storms last week that blew down a lot of trees, so people were making use of those trees to cut them up into firewood. I'm, worried about hay. I'm starting to, I spend all summer worrying about making sure I have enough hay to get through the winter. So, winter is always, as a farmer, is always in the back of my mind. We put up food, we freeze, we can, we dry, we preserve, we butcher animals and put them in the freezer. We do what we need to do to make sure that we can get through the winter. So in that sense, we're not that far removed from our ancestors. And I like that feeling in a way. I like that feeling of being prepared. I mean, I'm by far not a prepper. I mean, good Lord, if I ran out of Diet Coke, people would definitely get hurt. But at any rate, it's we're always thinking about winter. And so these harvest festivals that are coming up, we've got this one, we've got the one on the vernal equinox, and then we have the one around Halloween time. It's different harvests each time. We have the grain harvest, we have the nuts harvest, we have the apple harvest. Those are kind of the demarcations, but we are constantly thinking about, okay, even though we have an abundance of food right now, we won't have these things in December, January, February. So put those things aside. So so I was thinking about that just the other day, and I wanted to share that thought with you. Another thing that is going on this week, we have a dressage camp going on at the barn. Dressage camp. My dressage coach Denise is coming down and teaching lessons for us. This is my favorite part of the summer, and unfortunately at first it didn't look like I was going to get to ride, because I kind of hate to make Gusty do double duty, because I know that she would be the only horse that had to. And I thought it was going to work out to where we had 3 sections and I could ride in the last section and she would have a break. And truth be told, probably it wouldn't have bothered her. But I thought, okay, look, we're going to have so many kids. I'll just stand on the ground and help. And that has worked out really well. And then what happened is Denise offered to stay for a few extra minutes, maybe 20 extra minutes, and let me ride Flame afterwards, after everybody else was done. So that has worked out really well. And it made me feel really good, because all of the things she was telling the kids to work on are the things that I've been preaching to them all summer. In fact, the same words. And of course, that's who I learned from, so it's not surprising. So I rode Flame today. Oh my goodness, it went so well. I just was overjoyed with the ride that we had. Flame and I have a history. I've had her since she was 6 months old. I bought her in 2005, and I'll tell the story about why I bought her some other day. But she is probably the horse that I have spent the most money having professionally trained. We got off to a pretty good start. Then we got crossways with each other in 2012. I sent her to a trainer. Flame is very sensitive. I mean, you can think something and she will think canter and she will do it or whatever. And I suspect that trainer was a little bit rough on her. And so I had on some dressage spurs, which are just little round balls. There's nothing pointy about them. I got on her. I bumped her to ask her to go, and she pitched up in the back end, like, nuh-uh. And I'm like, really? So I bumped her again, and she just yard darted me. Her hind end went straight up in the air, and she just said, get off, and just stood there. And that upset me. I got mad first, but that upset me. And I mean, I got back on her, and it was fine. I wasn't hurt or anything, but that was always kind of in the back of my mind. And so she was very sensitive-sided, I noticed. And so 2012 was when my father died. And I mentioned a few times ago that I went to a horse show after we put him in hospice. My mom said, you need to go. He would want you to go. Well, I took her and Gusty. And they both horses feel your emotions. And that's one of the things I wanted to talk about animals having feelings and emotions. But I'll get to that in a minute. But horses can they feed off your emotions. If you're worried, they're worried. If you're upset, they know it. They can read your face just as sure as the world. I use what I call the mother-in-law look. I think I stole that from a trainer like Pat Pirelli or somebody. That's one of the only things I took away from his workshops. But where I kind of go, like this. And that's body language. I mean, horses in the herd use facial expressions. They use body language. I don't have ears to pin back, but, I can squint at them. I use the mother-in-law face. And that can make a horse move over, I was working with the kids, and, I would give them that face, and the horse would step over or move off of me or whatever. But at that show, Gusty, I rode her first. I rode her, I think, like at 8 in the morning, and she gave me the best ride I've ever had on her. We scored the highest. We did wonderful. She just was a trooper. Flame, on the other hand, was like, Mom's upset. I know Mom's upset, therefore I'm going to be upset too. And we had a horrible warm-up. I remember my friend Carol was there. Denise had to leave, and my friend Carol was there. And she said, you know, you don't need to worry about that mare bucking you out of spite, because you had her so mad she was just hopping up and down because she did not want to go back in the warm-up pen after we had walked out of it. Took her in the pen to show. We did terrible because she was just like freaking out about everything. And I'm like, what is going on? And Carol said, it's you. She knows you're worried about your dad. She knows you're upset. You know, she's feeding off of you. Well, then after that, my dad got bad, and I've told the story about how my mom got bad, and so I just kind of stopped riding her. And Marianne, after I had donated some horses to her program, offered to help me restart her. And we restarted her, and I had never cantered on her up to that point. We restarted her, and it took a year or so before I got on her again. So I probably got on her again in about 2016. But I was scared to canter on her. Every time I would get on her, my heart would just pound and my stomach would just be upset. And I'd just be nervous. Well, Eleanor riding her has helped me in the sense that Flame's just gotten ridden a lot more. She's got a lot of exposure. She's not as gitchy and spooky as she was at all now. She's hardly, even pays any attention when things happen. Unless I get worried about it. But I got to watch, what she was capable of doing and what she wasn't going to do. She wasn't going to buck. She wasn't going to be ridiculous. Her big thing is she spooks. She's just going to jump forward, which, that's no big deal. I can sit on that. But it helped me. And then when I finally, last year, I made my mind up, I was going to canter on her. Because I had tried the summer before and I just couldn't. I was too scared. And I got on her last summer, and I remember one day I just cantered. I was like, whoa! Well, I haven't had the opportunity to ride her as much as I would like, but this year I started, in the last year I've been riding her quite a bit more. And I'm not afraid to get on her now. I'm not nervous at all. I've just got to get with her rhythm, because she's very different rhythm than Gusty, because they're built very differently. Flame has a lot more potential to take me up to higher levels, but she's just a different horse, getting used to a bigger stride, more swing in her back. She's just a bigger horse with bigger movements. And so getting used to that. So Denise had offered to stay today, and I rode her. I sat the trot for the first time on her. It was just like butter. It was so nice. It just felt amazing. And of course Denise gives me pointers about sit up, open your chest, open your hands up, keep your hip soft, all this stuff, which really helped me. But I'm just so excited now. I'm so excited to move forward on her. I'm still going to ride Gusty, obviously, but I'm so excited now that I've over being afraid of Flame, where I can ride her now. So that was a big deal. And I was thinking about animals having emotions. I've seen that story shared about the orca who is carrying around its dead baby grieving. That just breaks my heart. Or then I shared an article about 2 elephants that had known each other in the circus, 25 years ago, were reunited in an elephant rescue. Animals feel things. Animals have feelings. Animals have emotions. Animals have souls. If you don't believe that, then I'm not sure you and I can be friends, because I believe that 100%. Well, let's see. Now, I took Bo some hay. Bo, finally, I hope, I haven't heard from her the last 2 days, but she sent me a message on Sunday, and she said we've had a major breakthrough with him as far as his willingness to be a partner. I had taken a load of hay up there, because I had just taken a couple of bales, but I took 12 bales. I got up Saturday, didn't feel very good. I have just been really tired and run down, so I've been trying to let myself sleep when I wanted to and rest and not really push myself. Because, work is fixing to start back up and there won't be any time for that. But I took a load of hay up to where he's at. He's up north of this town called Dover. Well, first, let me say that well, I took Lucky with me, first of all. My dog Lucky, as I had mentioned, he's actually sleeping over here in the floor. I would move my phone and show him to you, but I'm afraid I'd never get it put back. He's really afraid of storms, but he's the one that's been chewing. He's been chewing like my cables and he's chewed the waistband out of a pair of jeans. I mean, he's just been chewing on a lot of stuff, and I think it's because he's sad or upset or whatever. He likes to come in here with me when I'm working, and as long as I'm in here, he doesn't really chew on stuff. So I thought, I'm going to take him with me to the feed store, because he used to go with me from time to time. So I took him with me. Oh, he had the best time. He was so excited to get to ride. I bought him a little treat. I let him pick it out at the feed store. So that was in Morrilton, which is, 15 miles to the east of me. Well, then I had to go west and north of where I live to take the hay. And I pulled into the gas station. There was nobody there. There was an ice truck back then. There's this little weird corner station. It's a little bitty town, and there's this little weird corner station. So the ice truck had me blocked from going forward. So my plan was I was going to back out, cut my wheels so I could back out and turn the tail end of my truck to the left and go out around the building. Well, this woman and her husband in an Escalade pull up behind me, and they leave me about this much room. I'm in a 3/4 ton Chevy pickup that has not a very good turn radius. I mean, not that good, okay? And she's sitting there making faces at me because I can't move. And I'm like, sweetie, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? She finally started gesturing at me, so I just put my truck in park and sat there and looked on my phone. I played Candy Crush Saga while I was waiting until that ice truck moved, because I was like, when she started doing that, I was done. I was going to sit there till the apocalypse, But anyway, what I did notice, they have a little farmer's market on the strip there in front of where the old grocery store used to be. And they have people selling watermelons, and there was a guy selling horse tack. Well, Mr. Duval was there, the chicken man, with chicks, and I got to looking over there, and I was like, oh, he's got chicks, wonder what he's got. And I didn't go over there, but when I came back through town, I stopped and ended up with 10 more chicks. He had gone back to the hatchery. He had sold all the ones he had bought originally, and he went back and bought 200 more guineas and like 400 more chicks. So I bought some more chicks. I got some Buff Orpingtons and some Rhode Island Reds, and he thinks there's some speckled Sussex in there too, but I don't know. So I've got 10 more chicks. They're little guys. They're feathered out so they can be outside without a heat lamp, but I haven't put them in a big pen yet. I've got them still in a small cage. So I'm having to kind of make sure that they're doing okay. Today, well, my friend Lisa, whose children are the ones that do 4-H, they have rabbits, and they had an English spot female. Mr. Spots is my English spot boy. He's the one that kind of hurt his feet, and he's not been doing so good, but he's starting to feel better and gain his weight back now, so that's good news. But they had a black and white female, and they said, we'll just give her to you, because I helped them out, and they helped me out, so we kind of just trade back and forth that way. And so they'd kind of forgotten, I'd kind of forgot, to get her, and Lisa said, well, do you want to pick her up? And I said, sure, I'll pick her up today. I've got to go get feed, so I'll just meet you in town, and I'll get the rabbit. So I picked her up. Well, also I'm on our Pokemon Go group chat on Facebook, and somebody posted, who needs a cat? I should have had that chat muted. Who needs a cat? Well, I don't need a cat. But this little kitten they own a garage, and the kitten jumped out of the engine compartment of a truck that pulled in there. So it was obviously a stray that had been in there. It was, God knows where it came from, where its home was, where its family was. And they were going to take it to the animal shelter, and that's not good. I mean, I understand that animal shelters can only do so much, but around here, if you're a feral cat and you go to an animal shelter, your life expectancy is about 15 minutes. So I said, okay. And they said, well, it's gentle. It's big enough that it's eating food. It's not a baby. And I said, okay, well, if you can't find anybody else, but please keep trying, I will come get it. Well, we know how that worked out. I decided I would go get it after I picked up the rabbit, and I drove into a frog strangler of a storm. I mean, Russellville has the worst freaking storm drainage. I don't know what they're spending their money on in that town, but it is not on the storm drainage of their streets, because their streets flood every time somebody pours out a Coke bottle. I mean, it's bad. And, you know, luckily I was in my pickup truck, so I wasn't having any problems, but there was some deep water at some of those intersections. Some of those, if I'd been in my car, I'd have been a little bit nervous. But luckily, you know, I was in my truck, and so I didn't have any problems. But went and picked the kitten up, and she's very skinny. She's wormy. You can tell she's wormy. I don't want to worm her tonight because she's in a new environment. I gave her some tuna fish and some hard cat food, and she's sitting over there. She's right over here sleeping. I've got her quarantined from my other cats until I can take her to the vet and get her checked out, and then I'll have to introduce her slowly. I can't just throw her in the mix in there, you know. But I'll introduce her slowly. She's very calm. I mean, I don't know if that's because she doesn't feel good, but she ate all of her tuna fish, and she let me pet her. I don't know, but she's very calm, and she's very quiet. And she is, well, here, I'll turn this around where you can see it. Let me move it where you can see it. Here. Oh, and there's Lucky. Hi, Lucky. Okay, so now look at how dirty my floor is. I need to sweep. But anyway, so you know, I probably am ridiculous. I mean, I realize I passed Crazy Animal Lady about 4 exits ago, and that has caused me problems with relationships in the past. But you know what? I don't care. I truly believe that the divine, whatever your version of that is, puts things in our path, and we know, if you're paying attention, you know when you're supposed to act. And I mean, there's plenty of animals that I have not taken, or I've tried to help, but I have placed them with other people. You know, I fostered close to 400 dogs, you know, over the years. You know, I've helped place cats, I've helped place birds, I've helped place rabbits, horses. You know, I by no means have taken every animal that has crossed my path. But sometimes you just know when it's right, and I operate on that principle. I believe that if I do what's put on my heart by my higher power, you know, my version of my higher power to do, then I'll be all right. And, you know, this is sacred work. Saving these animals and working with these animals and helping them is sacred work. And there's a thing I want to try to read to you. I'm going to try to get through it, about the life of a rescuer. My computer went to sleep again. You'd think I'd stop it from doing that, wouldn't you? Okay, so let me see if I can put this where I can see it and Willie doesn't have to get down too. Because he would not like that. Okay, so, and this is actually, I know this is a little bit morbid, but this is something I've actually put in I have a folder, you know, with all my information in it, because I do live alone, and I already have my will written up, and I've actually got a folder in there of things like music that I want played at my memorial service or whatever, but this is a piece that I want read, and not because I'm trying to toot my own horn or aggrandize myself in any way, but I want people to understand, you know, why I am the Crazy Animal Lady. So this is a piece called The Rescuer at the Rainbow Bridge. And I'm going to try to read this without getting too upset. Okay, so it says, unlike most days at the Rainbow Bridge, this day dawned cold and gray. Damp as a swamp and as dismal as could be imagined. All the recent arrivals were confused and concerned. They had no idea what to think, for they had never experienced a day like this before. But the animals who had spent some time waiting for their beloved people knew exactly what was happening and began to gather at the pathway leading to the bridge to watch. They knew this was something special. It wasn't too long before an elderly animal came into view, head hung heavy and low, tail dragging along the ground. The other animals on the pathway, the ones who had been at the Rainbow Bridge for a while, knew the story of this sad creature immediately. They had seen it happen far too many times. Although it was obvious the animal's heart was leaden and he was totally overcome with emotional pain and hurt, there was no sign of any injury or illness. Unlike the pets waiting at the bridge, this dog had not been restored to his prime. He was full of neither hope nor vigor. He approached slowly and painfully, watching all the pets who were by now watching him. He knew he was out of place here. There was no resting place for him. He felt instinctively that the sooner he could cross over, the happier he would be. But alas, as he came closer to the bridge, his way was barred by the appearance of an angel who spoke softly to the old dog and apologized sorrowfully. That sounds like my neighbors are shooting off tannerite. Telling him that he would not be able to pass. Only those animals who were with their special people could pass over the Rainbow Bridge, and he had no special beloved people, not here at the bridge nor on earth below. With no place else to turn, the elderly dog looked toward the fields before the bridge. There in a separate area, he spotted a group of other sad-eyed animals like himself, elderly and infirm. Unlike the pets waiting for these special people, these animals weren't playing, but simply lying on the green grass, forlornly staring out at the pathway. The recent arrival knew he had no choice but to join them, and so he took his place among them and just watched and waited. One of the newest arrivals at the bridge, who was waiting for his special people, could not understand what he had just witnessed and asked one of the pets who had been there for some time to explain. That poor dog was a rescue, sent to the pound when his owners grew tired of him. The way you see him now was the way they saw him, with graying fur and sad, cloudy eyes, and that's exactly how he was when he was put into the kennels. He never made it out and passed on only with the love and comfort that the kennel workers could give him as he left his sad and unloved existence on earth for good. Because he had no family or special person to give him love, he has nobody to escort him across the bridge. The first animal thought for a minute and said, "So what will happen now?" As he was about to receive his answer, the clouds suddenly parted and the all-invasive gloom lifted. Coming toward the bridge could be seen a single figure, a person who on earth had seemed quite ordinary, a person who, just like the elderly dog, had just left earth forever. This figure turned toward a group of the sad animals and extended outstretched palms. The sweetest sounds that they had ever heard echoed gently above them, and all were bathed in pure golden light. Instantly, each was young and healthy again, just as they had been in the prime of life. From within the gathering of pets waiting for their special people, a group of animals emerged and moved toward the pathway. As they came close to the passing figure, each bowed low and each received a tender pat on the head or a scratch behind the ears. Their eyes grew brighter as the figure softly murmured each name. Then the newly restored pets fell into line behind the figure and quietly followed this person to the bridge, where they all crossed together. The recent arrival who had been watching said, "What just happened?" And the pet that had been there said, "That was a rescuer. That person spent a lifetime trying to help all kinds of animals. The ones you saw bowing in respect were those who found new homes because of such unselfish work. They will cross when their families arrive. Those you saw restored were the ones who never found homes. When the rescuer arrives at the Rainbow Bridge, they are permitted to perform one final act of rescue. They are allowed to escort these poor pets who couldn't find a place on earth across the Rainbow Bridge. You see, all animals are special to them, just as they are special to all animals." I know a dog says, "I think I like rescuers." Anyway, so, yeah. So maybe someday that will make sense to someone. And, and maybe that will encourage someone else to be the crazy animal lady when I'm no longer here doing it. I don't regret anybody that I've ever saved. I saw Willie's little picture. He was so scared in that picture at the pound. I knew he was going to be euthanized the next day. And there was no way I couldn't. I just knew it was on my heart that I had to help him. Just like I've taken the horses that I've taken, or the rabbits that I've taken, or the chickens that I've taken, or the ducks, or the geese, or whatever. Sometimes they're just put in my path, and I've tried to explain that to people, and it's a hard thing for people to understand, because all they see is, "Oh my God, how do you do all that?" It's what I want to do. It's what I want to do. So, having said all of that, I think we'll close there. I had some other things that I was going to talk about, but I think I've blabbered enough for tonight. So I'll come back and we'll finish up with a few final thoughts. Okay, guys, I just wanted to finish up with a couple of final thoughts. It looks like the worst of the storms may be going to miss me this time and go to the south. But a couple of times the theme the past couple of days or this last week has been, we do our best when we get out of our own way. Certainly that is true with riding. I mean, you know, riding is 90% of staying out of the horse's way and letting them do things that they already know how to do, and us just not blocking them. Dressage is a dance with your horse, and the horse needs to lead, I guess is the idea there. But also, too, you know, I was talking with somebody about the nonprofit that I want to start, and they said, you know, you're your own worst nightmare. You overthink things. Just make a plan and execute your plan, because no matter what you do, it's going to be successful. So just make a plan. And so I've started kind of thinking along those lines and taking steps to get the place prepared, you know, the way I want it done before I start, you know, building the classroom building and stuff like that, which is going to be a little ways down the road before I can afford to do that. But I can afford to get the land ready and all of that. Also, too, you know, getting out of our own way in terms of just life, you know, stuff, whether it's believing you're good enough to do a job or believing you can learn a new skill. You know, it always makes me sad when I hear people say, oh, I could never learn to do that. Why not? Why not? Sure you could. I mean, I've learned to swim at 45. I've learned to crochet at 48. You know, I mean, you can. If you really want to do something, get out of your own way. Stop. Change your language. Instead of saying, oh, I can never do that, say, I would like to learn to do that. You know, change your own language. Get out of your way. Quit self-sabotaging. I was talking with somebody about that in terms of just, you know, putting on an event or something, or leading a gathering or a meditation or whatever. Just believe that you can do it and just do it. I mean, there's no script. No, your way is not necessarily better or worse than the other ways, but it's your way, and just do it. So my big thing is just getting out of our own way and doing the things that we love, or doing the things that are important to us, or accomplishing goals. So I'm going to try to meditate on that this week, and I hope that you guys are doing good. I hope that you're meeting your crafting goals. And until I see you again, y'all be good to each other and take care of each other. And peace out, y'all. Bye.